All right, welcome to The Explainer. Applying to a top university like Harvard has always been, let's face it, incredibly tough. But wow, a bunch of recent changes have completely torn up the old rulebook. So today, we are going to break down Harvard's new Playbook, piece by piece.
Yeah, this is the question on every ambitious high schooler's mind, right? But look, before we can even get into the new rules, we gotta understand the playing field as it is right now. So let's start by setting a baseline with the most recent data we have.
So for this last class, the class of 2028, get this. Out of almost 48,000 people who applied, the acceptance rate boiled down to just one number, 4%. That's it. I mean, that's not just selective. It is literally one of the most exclusive places on the entire planet.
Okay, so what does it actually take to even have a shot, to be in the running? Let's take a look at the profile of a typical student who gets in. This will give us a baseline before we dive into everything that's changed.
You know, historically, strategy has been a huge part of this. Applying early action, it gave you a massive leg up. We're talking an acceptance rate nearly 5 times higher than applying regular decision. That's crazy. Now, Harvard doesn't share this data anymore, but it just goes to show you how much your timing can really matter.
And then, of course, you've got the academic benchmarks. What's interesting is that even when tests were optional, the middle half of the students who did send in their scores, well, they were in the super elite range. So right there, that's the standard. That's what you're being measured against.
Okay, but it goes way beyond test scores. Just look at the profile of an admitted class. A staggering 75%, 3/4, were in the top 2% of their high school class. Think about that. That tells you one thing very clearly. Near-perfect grades aren't special. They're just the price of admission. They're table stakes. And hey, see that 12%? The legacy students? Yeah, tuck that away. We're going to come back to that in a minute.
Okay, so now that we've got our baseline set, let's get to the first major change in the playbook. And for anyone who's applying for the class of 2029, this is a total game changer. Standardized testing? It's officially back.
Yeah, this is a complete 180. After a 4-year experiment where tests were optional, the policy has completely flipped on its head. So for this next cycle, if you don't have an SAT or ACT score, your application is literally incomplete. Period.
So what this means for you is that test prep just went from being a maybe to an absolute must-do. But there is some good news here. Harvard still lets you super score. That means you can take your best section scores from different test dates and mash them together to get the strongest possible score. That's a huge plus.
All right, next up. The next big rule change didn't even come from inside Harvard. It came from the Supreme Court, and it's totally changed how they look at your application, especially your personal story.
So, because race can't be a direct factor anymore, what do you think happens? Well, admissions officers are going to be digging way deeper into your essays, into your activities. They're hunting for the stuff that doesn't show up on a transcript. Things like resilience, character, unique life experiences, how you've handled challenges that have been thrown your way. Bottom line, your story just became more important than ever before.
Okay, and finally, let's talk about one of the most controversial things in the entire world of admissions: legacy preference. This old-school practice is under a ton of pressure right now, and that's creating a giant question mark for every single applicant.
Okay, so here's the deal. As of this moment, legacy preference is still a thing at Harvard. But, and this is a big but, you've got other top schools like Amherst and Johns Hopkins that have already dropped it. You've got legal challenges piling up. This thing is a ticking time bomb, really. So yeah, it's a factor for now, but you absolutely need to keep your eye on this one. It could change.
So, let's put it all together. Tests are back, personal stories are front and center, legacy is a big question mark. So, what's the actual game plan for you and your family? Let's break down the key steps you need to be taking, like right now. All right, your new game plan has 4 crystal clear steps. First, testing. You've got to get your strategy for that locked in immediately. Second, build a balanced college list. And I mean really focus on finding the right fit for you, not just chasing the big prestigious names. Third, your essays. You have to carve out real time to craft a story that is uniquely yours. And finally, and this one is so important, you have to get emotionally ready for a process that is, frankly, just completely unpredictable.
And hey, remember this, getting put on the wait list, it's not a no. Not yet, anyway. Think of it more like a holding pattern, and you can totally stay in the game. You do that by writing a really strong letter of continued interest. People call it an LOC. It's basically a formal note you send to admissions saying, hey, I'm still super interested. If you pair that with some significant updates on cool things you've done since you applied, well, sometimes that can be the exact edge you need to get in.
But maybe the single most important piece of advice in all of this is you've got to keep some perspective. Look, is Harvard an incredible school? Absolutely. But it is not the only path to a great, successful, happy life, not by a long shot. The real goal here is to aim high for sure, but to stay grounded through it all. Because at the end of the day, there are going to be thousands of other applicants with perfect scores and perfect grades. So this right here, this is the question that's going to make you stand out. Your grades and scores might get your foot in the door, but it's your story. That's what's going to get you a seat at the table.